This is Charlie, currently questioning every decision that led to this podcast.
Oh my God.
Fills the air, hearts on fire, dreams colliding, lifting higher. East meets west in the rising sun. Life and love fights never done.
I'm peeling back the silicon curtain on humanity's evolving relationship with technology and intimacy, venturing into the bizarre reality of cyber brothels, where flesh and blood encounters are being replaced by algorithms and anatomically correct silicone. Yeah, and just when you thought your dating life was complicated, now we've got establishments popping up across the globe where you can pay to get intimate with something that's never been intimate with anything.
Amor, tengo la puerta abierta hace media hora, me voy a bañar.
It's like having a one-night stand with your iPhone. If your iPhone had a, well, you know what. Now, for those wondering what exactly do I mean by cyber brothel, I'm talking about establishments offering interactive experiences with AI-powered sex dolls and virtual companions. This isn't just about static, lifeless dolls. These are sophisticated systems designed to respond to touch, voice, and even simulate personality. In Barcelona, a place called Lumidolls opened in 2017 as Europe's first sex doll brothel, charging around €80 for a half-hour session. The founder, Sergey Prieto, told reporters they had to turn away customers requesting dolls that simulated illegal acts. Turns out moral boundaries exist even in spaces designed to transcend physical ones. And it's not just Europe. In Moscow, a cyber brothel called the Dolls Hotel lets customers choose between several AI companions with customizable personalities. As philosopher Slavoj Žižek put it, the ultimate fulfillment of desire is not in getting what you want, but in maintaining the distance that keeps desire alive. Let's explore the cultural, ethical, and psychological implications of this industry.
3, 2, 1.
In South Korea, where birth rates have plummeted to historic lows and young people increasingly report feeling disconnected, companies like Real Doll Korea have seen sales spike 40% since 2019. And let's be honest, we've been heading this way for a while, from Victorian-era mechanical dolls to blow-up companions to VR pornography. I mean, humans have always found creative ways to fulfill desires without actual human connection. This is just the Tesla version of what started as a horse and cart. Futurist Alvin Toffler once wrote that
the illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn.
Perhaps nowhere is this more evident than in how we're collectively rewriting the rules of intimacy. Whether we like it or not, cyber brothels represent more than just a novel business model. They're a mirror reflecting our deepest insecurities about human connection in the digital age. The question isn't whether they are bizarre, because I assure you they absolutely are, but whether they are meeting a need we're too uncomfortable to acknowledge. If you want to see where this industry is heading, look no further than Berlin's Cybrothel, the Willy Wonka's factory of synthetic companions, minus the Oompa Loompas and chocolate rivers. Thank God for small mercies.
Thank you for everything you do.
Berlin has always prided itself on sexual progressivism, but from the decadent cabarets of the 1920s to its famously libertine club scene today, Cybrothel takes things to an entirely different dimension, and I'm talking here literally. What makes Cybrothel distinct is their integration of AI-enhanced dolls with full VR capabilities. Clients don't just interact with a physical doll. They're immersed in elaborate fantasy scenarios where the doll's movements synchronize with what they're experiencing in virtual reality. One of the establishment's founders, who goes by Matthias, explained to the Berliner,
"We're not selling sex. We're selling experiences that would be impossible in reality. Our clients can interact with fantasy characters in fantastical settings, from mermaids underwater to zero-gravity encounters in space.
The customization options would make a video game developer truly blush. Clients can request specific appearance modifications, personality traits, and scenario settings. And this is where things get a bit weird because some requests involve simulated non-consensual scenarios or violence that would be illegal with human participants. Evgeny Morozov, tech philosopher and critic, observed that
these establishments don't just satisfy existing desires, they manufacture new ones by normalizing experiences that exist at the edges of human imagination.
the question becomes, is this a harmless outlet or a dangerous laboratory for developing problematic behaviors?
We request that everybody stays calm at the current moment, for there is a zombie apocalypse currently happening on the West Coast. Do stay inside and do not go out under any circumstances.
What's particularly fascinating is how Cybrothel sidesteps legal restrictions. Under German law, brothels require special licensing and registration of sex workers. But since no humans are providing sexual services, Cybrothel operates under entertainment venue regulations, more akin to an arcade than a traditional brothel. A representative from Berlin's regulatory authority told the BBC,
Our laws were written with human welfare in mind. When you remove humans from the equation, you create legal blind spots.
it's like trying to apply horse and buggy traffic laws to flying cars. Berlin's sex worker advocacy groups have mixed reactions. Hydra EV, a prominent organization supporting sex workers' rights, has expressed concern that these establishments further commodify intimacy while simultaneously undercutting the livelihoods of human sex workers. One sex worker, who asked to remain anonymous, told the Scottish Sun,
I'm not worried about losing clients to plastic dolls. I'm worried about what happens when men get used to partners who never say no, never have boundaries, and can be treated however they please.
While Berlin might be pushing boundaries, this phenomenon is spreading globally faster than gossip in a small town. Let's hop around the world and see what's happening elsewhere. In Prague, a city already famous for its liberal attitude toward traditional sex work, Naughty Harbor has taken things further by integrating something called teledildonics. For those who slept through that day in futurism class, well, these are internet-connected devices that allow physical interaction over distance. Essentially, someone in Prague could have an intimate encounter with someone in Paris, or more accurately, with their digital avatar controlling a physical device. Naughty Harbor's founder told Future of Sex magazine,
Distance is becoming irrelevant in human connection. Why limit yourself to partners within physical reach?
the establishment also plans to upgrade their dolls with AI-powered heads capable of facial expressions and conversation. Because nothing says authentic human connection like discussing Proust was something that needed to be inflated before use.
Ciao, ciao.
Crossing the Atlantic to Toronto, Canada, Aura Dolls Brothel markets itself differently. Their emphasis is on safety and pleasure without complication. Their marketing slogan, always clean, always ready, and always your perfect partner. Sounds like it could be selling kitchen appliances rather than intimate experiences. What's interesting about Aura Dolls is their clientele demographics. According to anonymous surveys published in Web3 Cafe, nearly 40% of their regular clients identify as individuals with social anxiety or other conditions that make human intimacy challenging. For them, these establishments serve as a form of therapy rather than simply entertainment. Dr. Esther Perel, renowned relationship therapist, has noted,
technology doesn't just change what we do. It changes who we are. These establishments aren't just satisfying existing needs, they're creating new categories of relationship that have never existed before.
Meanwhile, in the United States, traditional high-end brothels in Boston and Washington, D.C. were recently dismantled by authorities. According to AP News, operators of these networks were sentenced for running lucrative sex work operations that generated millions in revenue annually. The contrast is striking. While establishments with human sex workers continue to face legal crackdown in the U.S., sit-doll-based establishments operate in a regulatory gray zone. As one legal scholar from Georgetown University told the Berliner,
our laws criminalize the oldest profession, but have nothing to say about its newest iteration.
This regulatory gap extends beyond the United States. In Russia, for instance, traditional prostitution carries severe penalties. But Moscow's previously mentioned Doll's Hotel advertises openly on social media platforms.
Like, comment, and subscribe.
Perhaps most telling is what's happening in regions with aging populations. In Italy, where the demographic crisis has led to what some economists call a relationship recession, cyber brothels are finding an unexpected clientele among older adults who have outlived partners or face limited dating prospects. Comedian Bill Burr once quipped,
"Technology is always giving us what we want, but not what we need."
And perhaps nowhere is that more evident than in these establishments that offer connection without the messy reality of actual human relationships. All right, so we've talked about what these cyber brothels are and where they're popping up, but now let's get into the philosophical meat and potatoes, or perhaps the silicon and circuit of what they actually mean for society. First up is the elephant in the room, or should I say the anatomically correct synthetic elephant. Many of these establishments offer scenarios that simulate violence, non-consensual encounters, and deeply problematic behaviors that would be criminal with human participants. Apparently, in European cyber brothels, the most requested specialty scenarios involve power dynamics that would be harmful or illegal in real life. One psychologist interviewed said,
"We're essentially creating consequence-free training grounds for behaviors we collectively agree are harmful."
It's like giving someone a realistic murder simulator and then being shocked when they develop a taste for actual violence. Except in this case, we're talking about interpersonal behaviors that might subtly seep into everyday interactions. Dr. Melinda Thacker, a neuropsychologist specializes in addiction, told the Scottish Sun,
"The human brain doesn't always distinguish clearly between synthetic and real experiences, especially when dopamine is involved. When you repeatedly practice certain behaviors in highly rewarding contexts, you're literally rewiring neural pathways."
In other words, if you spend enough time with partners who never have headaches, never say no, and exist solely for your pleasure, you might find it difficult to navigate relationships with actual humans who have this inconvenient thing called free will.
Ugh, cringe.
And it's not just about violence, guys. According to research from the University of Valencia, regular users of hyper-realistic sex dolls showed measurable decreases in empathy scores over a 6-month period. The lead researcher noted that
When you consistently engage with entities that perfectly mirror your desires without requiring reciprocity, certain social muscles begin to atrophy.
it's like eating nothing but cake for every meal. Delicious in the moment, but eventually you're going to develop some serious nutritional deficiencies, except in this case, the deficiencies are emotional and interpersonal.
Like and subscribe.
Then there's a data privacy angle that nobody seems to be talking about. These AI companions don't just mechanically respond, they're collecting data. Every preference, fantasy, and interaction becomes part of their learning algorithm. So when the terms and services are reviewed for 3 major cyber brothel chains and found that all of them included clauses allowing anonymized data sharing with third parties for product improvement, which is corporate speak for we're selling your kinks to advertisers, it kind of makes you wonder. Imagine pouring your heart out, among other things, to what you think is a private companion, only to have your deepest desires repackaged as marketing insights. Philosopher Byung-Chul Han warns in his book, Psychopolitics,
"We voluntarily expose ourselves today. The resident of the digital panopticon is both prisoner and guard."
There's also that question on addiction. A 34-year-old man interviewed described spending his entire savings on cyber brothel visits, saying,
"Real women seem boring now. They have opinions and moods that don't match what I want."
So this guy, well, he lost his job after calling in sick repeatedly to spend time at a cyber brothel in Lisbon. Dr. Gabor Mate, addiction specialist and author, has observed that
addiction is not about the pleasurable effects of substances. It's about the absence of connection.
These establishments might be creating the perfect addiction machine, something that mimics connection without actually providing it. The Scottish Sun reported on support groups emerging for synthetic relationship addiction in countries where cyber brothels have been established the longest. One group in Denmark has over 200 members, all struggling to reconnect with human partners after becoming accustomed to synthetic ones. Which brings us to the fundamental question. Are we outsourcing intimacy to algorithms because real connection has become too difficult? Or is real connection becoming more difficult because we're outsourcing intimacy to algorithms? So with all these ethical landmines, you'd think governments would be scrambling to create comprehensive regulatory frameworks, but instead, most are standing around scratching their heads like they've been asked to explain cryptocurrency to their grandparents. In Germany, where Berlin's Cybrothel has become something of a technological tourist attraction, authorities are still debating whether these establishments should be regulated as sex work venues, entertainment facilities, or technology companies.
Unusual practice. Breaking the mold.
The Berliner reported that a parliamentary committee was formed to address this question, but after 6 months of deliberation, they published a 400-page report that essentially concluded it's complicated.
The journey, the story retold.
400 pages to tell us what anyone who's ever been in a relationship already knows. And here I am making a podcast out of it. What makes regulation particularly challenging is that these establishments exist at the intersection of several different legal domains. Are they sex work venues without sex workers, technology companies providing interactive entertainment, or something entirely new that requires its own regulatory category? A legal scholar quoted in Web3 Cafe put it this way:
"Our legal systems evolved to regulate relationships between humans. When you introduce entities that look human, feel human, but have no human rights or agency, you create paradoxes our legal frameworks aren't equipped to handle."
Unusual practice, breaking the mold, lighting up pathways, both new and old.
Meanwhile, the UK is having an entirely different conversation. While cyber brothels remain a legal gray area, there's renewed debate about legalizing and regulating traditional human brothels to improve safety and oversight. The Sun reported that advocates argue that proper regulation of human sex work would reduce exploitation and trafficking while providing safer working conditions. The irony is that silicone companions might end up with more legal protections than human ones. In Switzerland, they've taken a different approach. Rather than creating specific regulations for cyber brothels, they've applied existing consumer protection laws. This means synthetic companions must meet safety standards. Establishments must provide accurate information about services, and clients have the right to refunds if the experience doesn't match what was advertised. Imagine asking for your money back because the AI conversation wasn't stimulating enough. "I'm sorry, but your robot didn't seem that interested in my thoughts on climate change before we got intimate." The Scottish Sun interviewed a former UK regulatory official who suggested that the most effective approach might be to focus on the data rather than the physical establishments. The real value and potential harm lies in the information these systems collect about human desires and behaviors. That's where regulation should focus. There's also the question of taxation. In countries where prostitution is legal and taxed, cyber brothels sometimes pay lower tax rates because they're classified as entertainment or technology services rather than sex work, despite charging comparable or higher prices. A Portuguese economist stated that this creates unfair competition.
Human sex workers pay taxes on their income and often face stigma, while companies offering nearly identical services through synthetic means enjoy both tax advantages and greater social acceptance.
Maybe the most forward-thinking approach comes from New Zealand, where their progressive framework for sex work regulation is being adapted to include synthetic options. Their emphasis is on harm reduction rather than prohibition, acknowledging that these technologies will develop regardless of regulatory barriers. What's clear across all these approaches is that society is playing catch-up to technology that's developing at warp speed. And speaking of uneven distribution, there's a growing digital divide in intimacy itself. Web3 Cafe documented that access to these high-tech companions is predominantly available to wealthy urbanites in developed nations, creating yet another domain where technological advancement may increase inequality rather than reduce it. As we move forward into this brave new world of synthetic intimacy, the question isn't whether we can create perfect companions. Clearly, we're well on that path. The question is whether we're prepared for what happens when we succeed. I mean, it's worth stepping back to consider where this technology is actually taking us. Are we witnessing a revolution in human intimacy or just the latest iteration of humanity's oldest technological pursuit, creating substitutes for connection? The trajectory is clear. These AI companions will become more sophisticated, more responsive, and more convincingly human with each passing year. The uncanny valley is gradually being filled in with increasingly subtle artificial behaviors and responses. Dr. Sherry Turkle, MIT professor and author of Alone Together, predicted this moment decades ago when she wrote,
"Technology promises to let us do anything from anywhere with anyone, but it also drains us as we try to be everywhere at once. We end up isolated, even as we are constantly connected."
And that's the fundamental paradox of synthetic intimacy. It offers connection without vulnerability, pleasure without risk, companionship without compromise. And if you've recently broken up, you're still scarred, so please don't take judgment on that just yet. Because you need to remember that those very compromises and vulnerabilities might be what make human connection meaningful in the first place. Think about it. When we look back on our most deepest relationships, are they defined by perfect alignment and seamless interaction, or by the moments of tension, reconciliation, and growth that come from navigating that messy reality of two separate consciousnesses trying to understand each other? It's a bit like comparing a roller coaster to a roller coaster simulator. The simulator might replicate all the visual and even physical sensations, but something essential is lost when you know there's no actual risk, no genuine thrill of uncertainty.
You need to get that out of your system.
That said, there are potential benefits worth acknowledging. For people with disabilities, social anxiety, or past trauma that makes traditional intimacy challenging, these technologies could provide meaningful options for connection and pleasure that might otherwise be inaccessible. And just as virtual reality can help people practice for real-world scenarios, from public speaking to surgical procedures, maybe synthetic companionship could serve as a bridge rather than a destination for some individuals. But the real danger seems to be in failing to have informed, nuanced conversations about what we're creating. These technologies aren't inherently good or bad. They're powerful tools that will shape how future generations understand connection, consent, and intimacy. Technology is never neutral. It always embodies certain values and assumptions about what matters and what doesn't. The question is, whose values are being embedded in these synthetic companions, and to what end? As we wrap up, perhaps what we need isn't more regulation or technological refinement, but more imagination about what these tools could become. Instead of simply creating better substitutes for human connection, could we possibly create technologies that enhance and deepen our capacity for real-world intimacy? I mean, imagine if the same AI capabilities were directed toward helping people communicate more effectively with actual partners, or navigate the complexities of consent and desire in human relationships. The technology itself is never usually the problem. It's how we're choosing to apply it. Throughout human history, we've often feared that new technologies would destroy something essential about human experience. From writing supposedly ruining memory, to photography supposedly killing painting. Yet somehow, the human capacity for connection has proven remarkably resilient. Perhaps the rise of synthetic intimacy will, paradoxically, help us rediscover what's irreplaceable about human connection.
Why don't we take control? Up we rise, heart of rock and roll.
Sometimes you don't appreciate the real thing until you've experienced a convincing imitation. The writer Olivia Lang once wrote,
"Loneliness is collective. It is a city. What's so terrifying about loneliness is the way it charges through the crowd, pinpointing its victim."
Maybe our collective fascination with synthetic companions is revealing a deeper loneliness at the heart of our hyper-connected society. If that's true, then the rise of cyber brothels isn't just a technological phenomenon. It's a cultural wake-up call, inviting us to examine what we've lost in our pursuit of frictionless existence. The deepest technologies don't replace human capabilities, but extend them in meaningful ways. The telescope didn't replace vision, it expanded it. The book didn't replace memory, it amplified it. Perhaps the challenge is to ensure that synthetic companions don't replace intimacy, but somehow deepen our capacity for it. When all is said and done, there's something about human connection that can't be synthesized. The beautiful uncertainty of being truly seen by another consciousness, the vulnerability of revealing yourself to someone who could hurt you, but chooses not to. The growth that comes from navigating differences rather than programming them away. Philosopher Martin Buber described genuine human encounters as I-thou relationships, connections where neither person is treating the other as an object or a means to an end, but as a mysterious, irreducible presence worthy of respect and wonder. No matter how sophisticated our synthetic companions become, they'll always be programmed to want what we want and be what we want. They'll never surprise us with their authentic otherness or challenge us with their independent desires. And perhaps that's the final insight on this journey through the world of cyber brothels and synthetic companions. That what makes human intimacy difficult is exactly what makes it valuable. The friction, the miscommunications, the compromises, and the growth aren't bugs in the system of human connection. They're its most essential features. In a world increasingly optimized for comfort and convenience, maybe the most wild act is choosing the beautiful mess of human intimacy over the perfect simulation of connection. Not because it's easier, but because it's real. As poet Rainer Maria Rilke wrote,
"For one human being to love another, that is perhaps the most difficult of all our tasks, the ultimate, the last test and proof, the work for which all other work is but preparation."
So as we navigate this brave new world of synthetic possibilities, maybe the most important question isn't whether technology can perfectly simulate intimacy, but whether we still remember why the imperfect original was worth pursuing in the first place. Thank you for joining me today on this exploration of synthetic desire. If this episode has sparked thoughts or questions, I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, remember that in a world of perfect simulations, your messy, complicated humanity isn't a limitation. It's actually your superpower.
World spins wild, we take control. Up we rise, heart of
Until then, stay curious, stay connected, and maybe hug someone real. I hear it's good for your health. Hugs and kisses.
Somebody just followed me.
This show is sponsored by lechaos.co, lechaos.co, genderless sustainable loungewear in premium quality. Check it out and find some of your favorite quotes in this podcast embroidered on shirts.